Hello. So the lighting in Massachusetts is so weird. I don't even know what to do with it. It's like really, it's crazy, but I guess it is the summer. I'm gonna see how long I can last making this video without air conditioning because I don't want to waste gas. And then I guess we'll see if we survive from there. But yeah, so disclaimer on this video, trigger warning, I guess. There is going to be talk of suicide, death, homophobia, homelessness, domestic abuse. So if you don't want to deal with the video with any of those topics, please go ahead and go watch something else and enjoy your day. This is clearly a very serious video I've been meaning to make for a long time. It was actually on the top, or maybe I just lied. It was at least closer to the top of the list of topics I wanted to do a video on since I came back from YouTube purgatory. So I'm also on the side of the highway, so when you hear all the motorcycles and the cars, just pretend it's not happening. Thank you. So, trans death and the erasure of identity. I have personally dealt with a lot of trans friends, trans people I care about, dying in my life. Unfortunately, I think it's just the nature of the world, unfortunately, and I don't know, I feel like it's talked about very vaguely in a lot of ways, or it's alluded to, but it's never really fully discussed. So I did want to talk about my own experiences. Another warning, I may start crying in this video. I said this in every other video, and I really do mean it for this one because I'm actually going to be talking about a very important person in my life who ended up dying. So I think I'm going to reverse the order I had in my outline, where I'm going to be talking about an experience I had as a teacher's assistant in regards to a trans student dying, and then I'm going to be talking about my own experience with, you know, a trans person in my life dying. So to start out, I used to be a teacher's assistant at Brookdale Community College in New Jersey. No, I do not care that I'm dropping their entire name. It doesn't even matter. Honestly, I would have liked to see the school be held more accountable for the way that they handled the situation, but either way, it happened in 2019, so I keep getting told that there's nothing I can do about it, but the only thing I can think to do about it is talk about it. So, at that time, once again, I was working for the school, but I was also a student. So what was happening was I would go to classes, and then after classes were over, I would start working the night shift, you know, repairing any desks that needed to be repaired in the art department, doing demos for students who needed more information about, you know, the technique we were using in the class. I would be, you know, kind of helping the teacher, like looking over their shoulder at their lesson plans, because I did want to be a teacher at one point in my life. So that was a lot of what I was up to from, I would say, maybe about 2016 to, how long was I a teacher's assistant? Maybe until 2020 because of the pandemic. So I was in class one day, and we're all just like messing around doing our art student thing, and then suddenly we see flashing lights through the windows. All of us run out to go look to the second floor because we're all on, I believe it was like the third floor of the building, and we see, or let me think, was there a basement? This was so long ago, I'm just kind of like, But either way, we're on one of the upper floors, it actually might have been the second, and looking down at the first floor, and we see all of these firefighters rush in. And we think, oh, like there must have been a fire in the ceramics department. Oh, there must have been some sort of chemical leak, you know, something was going on. So we're all watching, and then after a while the EMTs come in, and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening? And the teacher's like, you know what, we should go back to class, we should let them do their job, whatever else. So we go back to class, and then the next day I come in and everyone is talking about what happened, but the thing is, nobody exactly knows what went on. So some people are saying, oh, it was a girl, she went in there, she had an accident, she ended up dying, like it was horrible, you know, she went to, you know, that part of the art department. Other people are saying, actually, I heard it was a guy, and, you know, he, you know, did this, that, and the other, and then he ended up dead. And we're all like, oh my God. But I'm sitting there personally being like, I bet this is a trans student, because I feel like when somebody who's cis dies, it's not even a question of, oh, I thought their gender was this, this, this. Like, it really is just like, okay, there's a guy who died in the bathroom or something. Like, you know, it's not as complicated as people literally arguing back and forth about, you know, the gender identity of the deceased. So I'm sitting there being like, this cannot be good. I go to my next class, and there's a girl in there who I was friends with. And she is crying. And I'm like, oh, fuck, like what, like, hey, what happened? Like, are you okay? I'm really sorry. Like, what's going on? And she's sitting there like, my friend died. And she's a trans woman. Or I can't even say woman. It's like hard because she's like such a young person. She's probably, I'd say, somewhere in the range of 20 to 22. Like, she's so young. And to me, like, she's a kid, you know? I have no idea kind of what was going on, but I was like, to be so young and to publicly end your life like that, like something must have been going on. And as the days go by, I'm kind of being told different pieces of this girl's life who I've never met before. I've probably seen her around if she was in the art department. She's an art student, and she hangs out with all the other kids who I saw around. But essentially what happened was she's a trans girl and her parents did not approve of it. And her parents were giving her a hard time at home all the time. So what she would do is she would go out to the mall with this girl who was in my class, and they would shop for women's clothes for her. And she'd be having a great time. They'd go to the food court. It was a lot of fun. But then by the time the night was over, she'd have to take all of the clothes she bought and put them in the trunk of her car. And she wasn't allowed to bring them in the house because she knew her parents would either kick her out or get really angry with her. So this pressure was mounting from her family, it seems like, over the course of years. And then finally she ended up going to the men's single bathroom and killing herself on school grounds. And everybody at school, especially the staff, was trying to gloss over it in a very specific way. They didn't want to talk about it. They were, this is a very specific thing. The next day that it happened, you know, I found out what was going on, and I brought flowers because I was like, I feel like there should be some sort of memorial for her because, you know, she died. Like, she shouldn't be forgotten. And so I had the flowers, and I was told by the teachers, hey, so like, we can't really do anything about it, and we aren't allowed to leave any reminders of her essentially in the school because the administration, the higher ups said, we don't want to cause upset for the students. But the thing that I was seeing was the students were very genuinely upset about the fact that the school was sweeping the whole situation under the rug because they didn't want to anger the parents, because it would come out that she was a trans girl, and the parents did not want to admit it, did not want their son to be slandered by other students. And it's like, those are her friends. Like, they know her really well, like, and they know that she's serious about this. Like, she really is, you know, trying to transition. Like, it's like a whole thing. So I said fuck you to the school and I left the flowers anyway because I was like, how are you going to sit there and tell us all to forget this person? I haven't even met her, but just speaking to her friends, it sounds like they loved her very much. She was very important to them. And you want to cover it up because, once again, the transphobic / homophobic parents didn't want to address anything or, you know, have any sort of proof that there was something wrong with their son. Like, it was horrible. So that happened. Not for nothing. Like, I don't know if I mentioned it in this version of the video yet because I think I actually got 8 minutes into recording the video and then I had to restart because I felt like it wasn't good. So she's Latina. She's white Latina. And her friends wanted to build an altar for her. They really wanted to, you know, have a memoriam for her and be like, look at this like specific cultural thing for her that is in the school that is honoring her memory. And the school wouldn't let them do it. The school was like, yeah, you can't. We don't want to upset anybody else. It's like, you're upsetting these kids. They're trying to grieve their friend and you're not listening to them. So I just put the flowers down and I said, fuck it. This happened. Like, I don't really care what you think. Like, this girl is gone now and nobody feels like they can remember her even now. And it's only been a few days because you don't want to let them, you know, have their grieving period. So whatever. I put the flowers down and the next day I came in and they set up the whole altar around them. And I was so happy because I was like, like, that's right. Like, they should be able to do that. It's their right to grieve. And it's her right, like, culturally, to have an altar if her friends want to build her an altar. Like, I don't understand what the problem is. Like, really. So they build the altar and the school is pissed. The school is like, you can't do this. This is unauthorized. This is not right. Like, all this other stuff. And because they put trans flags all over the altar. Like, the school was not happy. And I was just sitting there as somebody who, like, is a student worker. So not necessarily, obviously, part of the staff. But somebody who's like, I don't know, I work here and I think it's necessary for this to happen. So like the whole next few days that this was all going on, I felt like I was like kind of trying to talk to teachers and tell them like, hey, you need to let these kids grieve, because pretending like it didn't happen isn't doing them any good. And I don't really care if the parents are angry about the fact that like their child, you know, is now fully out as trans in the eyes of the public. It's like, that's what she wanted. That's what she wanted. How could you tell her friends and people who cared about her and people who loved her that like they're not allowed to grieve, you know? So that happened, and the school put a limit on the amount of time that the altar could be up. They're like, we're giving you like the next 3 weeks, because it was about the end of the semester, and then after that, if it's not taken down, we're throwing it out. And they didn't tell any of the other people that. They told me that, because they knew that I was in direct talks with the students who were mourning. And I was like, what, like, why are we taking things down? And then like they ended up doing this weird contract thing, essentially, where they would have a piece of Sammy's artwork up, you know, hanging on the walls for 2 years. And after those 2 years were up, they would completely taken down. It would be like she never went there and that she never existed. And it made me livid, because I was like, how are you not going to put up a memorial for a student who died? Literally, a kid could die in a car crash on this campus, and you would be like memorializing them eternally and coming up with a plaque for them and doing all this stuff for them. Meanwhile, this poor girl literally takes her own life in the bathroom, and you won't do anything about it. So that was a whole thing. And then I continued to try to support the person who I knew in my class, because she was saying she really wanted to go to the funeral, but she felt like she couldn't because she could not face down the parents. And so she didn't end up going, and it turned out the parents put their child's dead name everywhere on the service, and I didn't confirm it, obviously, because I didn't want to bust in on the memorial, because I don't personally know the family. But at the same time, like, apparently they had a showing of this girl, and they dressed her in men's clothes and buried her, which I think is like very common. But I can't say I can't believe it happened, but it disgusts me to no end. Because my thing is, and I say this to like everybody who will listen whenever the topic comes up, if you are not prepared to have a gay child or a trans child, like you're like gonna have a baby and you're doing all this planning and you cannot conceptualize the idea of them being gay or trans, and you would not approve of them or support them if they were, you shouldn't have a child. You should not have a child. Like, you should not be allowed to have a kid. Because if you're not going to love that child just the way they are, then like, what's the point of having them? Just to force them to conform to the dreams that you had of them when they were like going to be born or whatever. Like, I just don't understand. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I still remember Sammy all the time. I actually have a lot of the things from her altar, like, in my house, because I was the one who got told by the staff to take it down, and I was going to deliver it to her friends, but like when the semester ended, they weren't there anymore. So I was just like, I guess I'll just hold it for you, or just hold it in general, because like I don't know what else to do. So like, I don't know, I feel like I just have this big reminder in my house, like in a box, essentially saying like this person existed. And I have a lot of those things weirdly spread out in my like apartment, like I'm about to decorate or whatever. And there's so many little things that her friends left for her on her altar. I feel like I don't just want to put it in a box and forget it, you know? Like, that's literally like her life, like a big chunk of her life that's now been discarded, essentially. Or like, I guess, put into a time capsule, and I feel like I'm holding it for her, and I'm trying to like, I don't know, keep her alive in a certain way, because I didn't know her personally, but I'm just like, it's a shame that somebody so young had to die so early because she felt like she had no way out, and that she could never be herself. Like, that's not an acceptable thing to me, like that children should be dying like that. Continuing from there, I want to talk about my friend who died. I felt like the way that I talk about this friend who died is the same way that I heard Sammy's friends talk about her, and like it broke my heart. I cried a lot, and I still feel like I still like cry for these people, because it's genuinely just like so unfair. I'm like having a hard time putting it into words, like the level of grief that was experienced and witnessed because of that event. Those kids will never be the same kids, ever, because they lost their friend, who, in my opinion, should never have had to feel so trapped and so alone that, like, she took her own life. Like, that's just, unacceptable. With my friend, I met, their name was Darby. You might recognize the name because I dedicate all of my books to them, every single one. I write their name, I draw them a little picture in the dedication, because without Darby, I don't think I would be myself, like the way I am right now. And that sounds so dramatic and so intense, but like, I'm very serious. Like, they were the first gender non-conforming person I'd ever met in my life, like in person. And I was am still, and was very in love with them. I guess this year would have been the 10-year anniversary of us knowing each other. But that didn't happen because they are gone. So, to start from the beginning, I was 17 years old. I was in high school. I was relatively gender non-conforming, but not so much so because I felt like I couldn't fully just like live my life, because I was still living under other people's roofs who were not my parents, and I had a lot of hang-ups still about being a lesbian. I like actually did not come out as a lesbian until I was 19, which I'm about to go into. But I met them at the counselor's office because I think I was going in to either talk about my life problems, or I was going in for just a standard routine, hey, like academic advising meeting. I was coming out, and they were actually just in the school, high school, Henry Hudson, that I went to for the first time. So what happened was I was asked by the secretary to show them to the class that I was in, because we were going to be in the same class. It was like Algebra 2. It was really, I hated that class, but whatever. And I actually saw them before the secretary said anything, and like from immediately seeing them, I was like it's so hard to describe. It's very cliche, but like I saw them and I immediately felt like I knew they would be important in my life. At first, for 5 seconds, I was like, oh, they seem like a really cool boy. They're dressed really, like, whatever. And then they turned around, and it was, it was them. Like, they had their, like, little, like, denim jacket and their, like, cool skinny jeans. And this was, like, also back, I'm old. This was back in 2014. And, like, I don't know. I just thought they were so sick. They were like wearing creepers, like this very specific type of shoe that has like a stacked heel with like checkerboard on the front. And they had a bag that was crocheted, and on the front of it, there was a patch that said, bunnies not bombs. And they had like a fidget toy on the side of their purse that was like a buckyball. Apparently you pull it, it like vibrates. It's really funny. But, I remember everything. I remember everything about them from the first time I met them to the last time I saw them. And I just thought they were so not part of the world that I was in at all. Like, they were so, they're from a cooler place. Let me put it this way. They're from a place where, like, you could be gender non-conforming, and you could have short hair, and you could, not wear makeup and not have to force yourself to try to be feminine. They just were themselves, and I was so impressed. And like, I don't know, I was like such like a dumbass. Like, I saw them and I was like, like it's like a hi. And they're like, hey, what's up? Like, my name's Darby. Like, nice to meet you. Like, I'm just starting, like, whatever. And like, I like completely just did not know what to do. So like, we started talking about something. I think I was like, oh, I really like your jacket, because I think it had a bunch of patches on it, and it was like army green, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. They're like, thanks, I got these patches at like, my friend's whatever event. And I was just like, oh my god, you have friends? Are they cool like you are? Like, what's going on? Like, it's so, I feel like I'm not describing them very well. I am not doing them justice, but like, I fully like, I was just like, oh my god. And then I got to know them, and they were so cool. They were also an artist. They had the most interesting style that I've ever seen. And I don't mean interesting in the patronizing way of like, oh, it was like so weird and interesting. Like, no, it was like genuinely so beautiful. And they would make these paintings of girls that I was like, because they had so much character and so much visual fluidity about them, while also just being so solid and like cartoony. Like, I wish I still had some of their paintings, because I think about them and I'm like, oh my god, that was so cool. And they could illustrate like there is no tomorrow. Like, it was like crazy. I was just like, how are you making these things? And you have such a like original way of I don't know, just drawing different characters. And I feel like my stuff is so weird and kind of like, I drew ugly back then. Really ugly, but it was fun, and that was the point for me. I was like, oh yeah, I really just wanted to be bizarre and off-putting and as like weird and like gender fluid as possible. I don't know, like that was me when I was like a kid. Like, that was my thing. But like their style and their like body of work was so cohesive and like visually very just like, you look at the painting, you cannot look away from the painting. It's like so beautiful. And like, I don't know, I'm having such a hard time and doing such a poor job of describing this person and who they are, because I feel like I just think about them so often. It's almost like embarrassing for me to talk about, because I still love them very much. Like, it's difficult for me. I really do. So all that to say, I knew them for a solid 2 years in person, and then they ended up having to go to a group home because they had a lot of mental health issues that their mom was not willing to and not able to deal with. So they had to go away. And I still tried to visit them as much as I could, but I didn't have a car, I didn't have money. I was like a kid, so I just couldn't. There were so many things that I could not do to support them that I wish I could have done. So from there, you know, a few years pass. I'm in college now, and they suddenly live in Colorado because their mom decided to move them to Colorado with like her boyfriend, who is literally their age, which is like a whole situation. I feel like I have a difficult time talking about their mom because I blame her a lot for their death. Like, really, like, she was not taking care of them the way that, in my opinion, she should have been. Because it's like, dude, this is your child who you abandoned for a very long time. Then you came back and took them. And then you realize how hard it is to raise a kid who was not really raised by anyone because you abandoned them. And now you're going to abandon them again. Like, I have feelings about that. But they just always really had a hard time. They did actually also have schizophrenia. Both of us in high school were really struggling because they were dealing with mental health stuff at the same time I was dealing with mental health stuff. And like, we would both talk about it and just kind of laugh, because we'd be like, yeah, like, we don't know what to do. Like, we don't know what to do with our lives. Like, they're really, I think this shit's really gonna kill us. Like, it was really bad, but like, we'd be like, haha, it's okay though. I'm glad I at least have you to like understand kind of what's going on. So that happened. And then, they moved back to Florida because they grew up in Florida. They moved back to Florida when they really didn't want to. And from there, they met this really abusive man and they started dating. And I was, you know, sitting there like, I'm really, really worried about you. I wish you'd break up with him. But at the same time, I was dating really abusive people. So I couldn't really say anything, because we would both like do calls, you know, every once in a while when we could. And we'd be on the phone like, oh, so how's life? Like, how are you going? How's the art? And like, eventually they told me they stopped making art altogether. And I felt like that was my number one red flag of like, you're really sick. Like, you're really not doing well. Because you would never normally stop making art. It's the most important thing in your life. And you've told me that. And I've told you that it's my most important thing. And we were going to achieve our dreams and be artists one day, like be real artists. Like, and they just stopped. And I was like, what do you mean you stopped? Like, you're literally like, you're the one who's supposed to make it, you know, like you're the one who's supposed to, you know, be this big, fabulous, famous, you know, artist. And I'm supposed to be the one who crashes and burns and dies at the age of like, you know, now, essentially. Like, I feel like it's so hard to see you go through this and not be able to physically be there for you because you know, you're all the way down in Florida. I was up in Washington State at the time. I remember this one specific time, I think it was the last time I talked to them on the phone. I called them and I was like, how are you doing? Like, what's going on? And they're like, I'm not doing that well. And I was like, oh no, like, what's wrong? Like, are you okay? Like, actually, like, do you want me to come down there and get you? Because I could try. I really don't have a whole lot of money, but like, I don't know. I could take out a loan, I could do something, and like, I could try to go down there, maybe. And they're like, no, you don't need to do it. It's nothing special. It's just I was at the grocery store, and this makes me so angry. Makes me so angry. It's hard to talk about. Sorry. I was at the grocery store and my boyfriend took my food stamp card from me and then started yelling at me in front of everyone. And he won't give me my food stamps back and I don't know what to do. And I just sat there like, okay, so I'm going to come down there and kill him for you. That's what I'm going to do. And they were like, no, I don't want you to do that. He's actually really important to me. And like, also, I'm very emotionally dependent on him. So I can't really, like, they verbatim said that. They're like, I'd leave him if I wasn't so like attached to him and like literally like dependent on him for everything, because I think they also did have diagnosed BPD, so like that was their like little special person, and they felt like they couldn't leave. And I was just like, please let me know when I can come and get you, because when you want me to come and get you, I will. It's not a problem. And they were like, okay, I understand, like I really appreciate it, like thank you so much, like, but I don't see anything changing in the foreseeable future. I am trying to talk to my grandma to see if I could move back in with her, but like this is not, looking good. And I was just like, okay, like it's fine, like I'm not gonna kill this guy. It's fine. Like just tell me when and where and I will try to come and get you. So from there, I would send them text messages and they would not answer. And I was like, okay, this happens with you sometimes. Maybe you're just having a bad mental health, period. And like, I'll talk to you eventually. It's not like you to not talk to me like that, but like, it's whatever. I'm going to say it's fine. So all that was happening. And then, I heard my family banshee, which sounds so random, and like I know banshees are seen as like kind of mythical creatures at this point who don't actually exist, but like I genuinely did have like a full-on like intense dream that I don't want to go too much into because I feel like talking about it actually kind of scares me. But essentially I heard the banshee scream and I was like, what was that? And like it was really scary because I also saw, I'm a very spiritual person, so when I see these things, I believe them, and people make fun of me because they think they're not real, but it's very real. Like, I saw a separate death omen somewhere else that I don't want to go into because it was very scary. And my roommate made fun of me, which I thought it was interesting because I was like, dude, you're like also like very Catholic, like you're Mexican Catholic, dude. Like, how are you going to sit there and like make fun of me seeing a death omen? Like, Jesus fucking Christ. So that happened, and I was like, for like a week or two, I know it's supposed to be you hear the banshee and then you get the news immediately. So I was like, maybe it was just me having a regular nightmare. Maybe it's not actually a real thing. Just kidding. I knew it was a real thing, but I didn't want to believe it. And then a few weeks later, like very shortly, I found out that Darby had committed suicide and was now in the hospital because it hadn't been successful. But the thing is, it's very much like their oxygen was cut off for so long that even if they woke up, they would have pretty severe brain damage. So they were on life support for like a month, and I crashed and burned, and I could not deal with anything. Like, I literally was not functioning. And people knew, like, I told them, I was like, this happened, and they're like, oh, okay. But since it's the fucking Pacific Northwest, people don't know how to deal with emotions. So they would just be like, let's go out and have fun. And I'd be like, I can't. I'm sorry. I have to wait by the phone. I have to see if there's any updates about them. I can't go out. I'm like, I just can't. And they'd be like, okay, like, and they'd leave, and I would just be sitting there like crying for obvious reasons. During this time period also, which I don't want to really go into because it's actually very painful for me, I started hanging out with an ex of mine who was very abusive. And she seemed to take it like, oh, we're getting back together. I was like, I told you we're not getting back together, but you're one of the only people I know in the Pacific Northwest who I'm kind of close to. And in this moment, I need you to support me in the way that I have supported you throughout our entire relationship. And I need you to at least just, if you like, spend time with me if you can. And I know you're able to, because you don't do fuck else other than try to like harass me and stalk me and leave notes at my door after I told you never speak to me again and whatever else. Like, I need you in this moment to help me because I don't know what to do. I cannot mentally process the fact that my friend is in the hospital and that this actually happened. And of course, she took advantage and tried to restart our relationship and started trying to have sex with me when I did not want to have sex, because I was like, I can't function right now. All I can do is like drink and like lie in bed and stare at the ceiling. And like, I need you to be here for me. I know it's hard for you. You have no emotional capacity to do these things, but like, I'm going to need you to do that. And, as this was happening, they took advantage of me in a lot of ways and ended up actually sexually assaulting me when I wasn't awake, because I was so drunk I could not sit up, and I woke up and they were sitting on my face. And I didn't remember what was going on. I just knew that I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I didn't know why we were having sex. And I think about that a lot because it makes me feel like I just can't be in a relationship again for those reasons. Like, I feel like I just can't trust anybody, because it was like the one time I needed you to be there for me and support me in any capacity. You know, perfect time to like sexually assault me, I guess. I don't know. So, and I've had that happen again later in life. Sadly, it was like me dealing by myself with the death anniversary of Darby yet again, because surprise to no one, the story ends with them dying. I don't know what's wrong with people. People really see me being sad, like legitimately sad, like crying and like drinking and being like, I cannot do this, and they take it as an opportunity to like have sex with me. And I don't understand how that happened. It like genuinely is very upsetting. And it's like, I did not initiate, even, it doesn't even matter, but like, I did not initiate any of those things when they were happening. And this has now happened like 2 or 3 times. And I'm like, I can't trust people for that reason. But back to Darby, who is actually the main focus of the story, as they should be. They were in the hospital. That was all happening with my ex. And then I did get the phone call that on their birthday, because they were once again on life support for a month, I think they collectively decided if they don't wake up when they unplug the machine, then they're never going to wake up, because like having them on life support is just like not right for Darby. They decided. So, which I understood, because like they really had such severe brain damage. It just wasn't a smart idea to hold on hope. And like, I felt kind of torn, because a bunch of people from my hometown who were claiming to like, I don't know, be friends with them or whatever, like were like, oh yeah, like just so you know, like they might not wake up, all this stuff. And I'm like, I bet they won't, because they just are physically in such poor condition. And they're like, okay, but they might, if we pray hard enough, maybe they might. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, they're literally like, not to like literally shit on your hopes and dreams, but like, I really don't think they're gonna wake up. So they didn't, and they ended up, you know, passing away on their birthday. And I couldn't handle it. I was thinking of doing it in the first place because I really hated Washington State, but I like moved back to New Jersey because I was like, I feel like this was the last place I saw them, and maybe if I go back to New Jersey, like they'll be there and we can see each other again and things will be normal. But obviously that's not how life or death works. But for multiple years I felt like I was just waiting for them to come home. And that's why I stayed in New Jersey. I literally was like, them dying in Florida, the place they hated the most, the place where they were hurt the most, feels like not like a reality that should have happened. And it breaks my heart because I think about them all the time and I just don't know what to do. Like, I don't, because they were, like, I thought I would know them forever. I really did. Like, I saw them and I was like, that's what my future is gonna look like. Like, so much of who I am as a person is like, this sounds like crazy, but like, it's kind of like, I saw them doing it and like doing it like it was nothing. Like, oh, they cut their hair. Oh, they wear men's clothes. Oh, they just like draw whatever they want and they love girls and they're very open about it. And I never thought that was possible before I met them. So they opened up like an entire different reality for me, and I live in that reality now, and I feel like it doesn't make sense that I would be living in like the life I'm living now and like they wouldn't be here to see it. because I felt like, I mean, I was such a weird fucking loser in high school, like, unironically, like, I don't know how else to put that, like, I just had, I felt like I had nothing to offer, but they were still my friend, and they felt like, I don't know, apparently they felt like I was enough of whatever I was for them, and that they would spend time with me and, like, talk to me, and, like, we would, like, have all these dreams that we were gonna, like, get, you know, together once we left Highlands. Like, once we're out of Highlands, like, we're gonna do all this stuff, and, like, everything's gonna be great, and, like, they were, like, so excited to live their life and have their art and, like, be happy for once. And I was too. And now I'm, like, starting to do that, and I feel like they're not here, so I don't really know what to do. Like, I literally feel so, pointless. That's, like, I said this video was gonna be sad, so, like, yeah, like, I genuinely feel that way all the time, and, like, once again, all of my art is dedicated to them. Because I don't think my art would be the way it is now without us kind of challenging each other and, like, pushing each other to do what we wanted to really do and make what we really wanted to make. I don't know. I just love them so much. And I'm just so grateful. This sounds like crazy, but I'm grateful that they didn't have, like, a dead name necessarily. And that their identity was very difficult to misconstrue. Because I know that, like, if they could have been, you know, misgendered, and if they could have been, you know, gotten the treatment that Sammy essentially got at her funeral, like, it probably would have happened for Darby too. So, like, I don't know. I just wish that, and this is such, like, specific, I have a lot of survivor's guilt in general because of the whole transracial adoption thing, but I feel like I have such survivor's guilt over them being alive, or me being alive and them not being alive, because I feel like it's, like, crazy, but, like, I knew in high school one of us was gonna live and the other person was gonna die, and that sounds really dramatic, but it's, like, given our mental health and the way it was in reality, and, like, the degree and severity to which we were both dealing with things, and I was unmedicated. I'm pretty sure they could get meds occasionally, but, like, I think their mom wasn't consistent enough to be able to supervise them and make sure they took their meds and make sure they had their meds consistently. So, like, they would be off meds, on meds, off meds, on meds. And so would I later in life once I finally got them, because I just had a hard time dealing with literally anything, because at this point my mom was also very, very sick when I met them. So it's just, like, I don't know. There were so many things going on, and now I just am so almost relieved that they aren't seeing the world the way it is right now, because it's terrible, but I'm also very, you know, just sad that life couldn't have, I don't know, granted us more time. I feel like it's hard to talk about them without being incredibly cliche and whatever else, like, oh, gone too soon, like, gone for not forgotten, but it's, like, not even, like, genuinely, like, I feel so deeply about the fact that I thought they would be in my future, that, like, I almost don't know how to, like, navigate daily life because I'm having a hard time without them. Were we best friends in the whole world? No. Did I know every single thing about them? No. That is not something I'm trying to portray. Like, I hate it because I've seen it a bunch of times. People die, and then people, like, other people flock like vultures and are like, actually, I was their best friend. Actually, I knew everything about them. It's like, no, you didn't, dude. Like, not at all. But, like, were they a very important person in my life? Yes. They were actually the very first person I ever came out to. And, like, I feel like I've told this story on this channel so many times, but I've archived those videos where essentially I was in a Denny's because I had to leave an emergency housing situation because they were being very scary to me. So I drove to a Denny's and I was not in a good mood in the first place. And then I got hash browns and a sundae, and I sat there and I came out to myself and I was like, I'm a lesbian. Like, I'm a lesbian. I wasn't just, like, coming out like, oh, I think I'm gay, or like, oh, I think I generically, like, I think I might like women. I was like, I am a lesbian. I never want to be with a man for the rest of my life, and I don't know what to do about it. Like, So I texted them and I was like, hey Darby, can I tell you something? And they're like, yeah, whatever, like what's going on? And I was like, I'm a lesbian, and not only that, you were the first person I ever really loved, ever, and you might be one of the only people I will ever love in my life, and I just want to let you know that. And they're like, well, if it makes you feel any better, you were the only, because at the time I was like, my identity, IDK, what that is, they were like, you were the only girl I would have dated in high school. I really, really liked you, but it just didn't happen. And I was just like, ah! Like I started crying, and like they were there for me in that moment, and I just felt like, I feel like there really wouldn't be me the way I am now if it wasn't for them. So I owe them that for the rest of my life, I feel. And it's not like they even did anything to get me to like owe them anything. And like something very specifically with them that I will always remember and like, I don't know, kind of appreciate about them is the fact that they knew I was really into them. They knew that I loved them, like they did. I made it pretty clear in high school, like even though I didn't directly say it, I was like, I was like, you're it for me, man. Like not even in a romantic sense of like, we're gonna be together forever. Like not even, just like, dude, like you are like so important to me, like such an integral part of who I am as a person, just by like you existing and functioning and being yourself, that I just like, I can't be grateful enough. Like I can't. Like there's so many people in my life who have been terrible to me, really bad to me, like really horrible, and I expect it. I'm like, okay, whatever, and I almost forget things immediately as they happen, because it's like I will remember the event loosely in general, but every single time I get hurt, I'm like, okay, well, like this is just how it is, this is how people are to me, like I understand that. Like they never hurt me, and they could have so easily, and they never asked me to have sex with them ever, which sounds like silly, because it's like, oh, like why does it matter, like you're friends, why would you have sex? It's like, no, it's like I could tell that they really liked me, and they could tell that I really liked them, and they never tried to push me into having sex with them. And I've gotten used to it, where to the point of like people try to take advantage of me sexually in so many ways constantly that I just I expect it and I get over it. But with them, what stood out to me really was like they could have done anything they wanted to me. They really could have pushed me into anything, and I would have said yes, because I loved them and I would have done anything for them. But they never, ever, and they had so many opportunities, like they never tried to get on top of me and like hurt me. And like it sounds so simple, but when you've lived a life of people taking advantage of you sexually, even as a child, because they knew they could, because they knew that you cared about them, like that's such a rarity for me. And like I will be grateful for that for them like forever. I don't know if I should post this video, because it actually is very, very personal to a level of just like, I feel like this isn't even about like, oh, lesbian topics, or like, oh, transracially adoption, you know, whatever, like transracial adoption topics. Like it's just about my life. Like it really is. And like it's just an example of like, once again, like when trans people die, like they get misremembered all the time, like nobody really does anything. Something that made me livid, which sounds so random, is they had a Tumblr blog that I didn't know about, but apparently everybody else in their friend group knew about, and they would talk and post about committing suicide all the time. And everyone was like, I thought it was a joke, I didn't think they were serious. It's like, I feel like I could tell when things are a joke, when you're like, I'm gonna kill myself, like haha, like versus like genuinely them planning and posting all these comics that are like about getting like taken advantage of sexually, because that had happened to them too in their life at multiple turns, which like makes me want to kill myself, that they had to experience a lot of the things I've experienced in regards to sexual assault and battery and abuse. Like it just it fills me with a sorrow and a rage that I cannot even fully articulate, because I never want anybody to have to go through the things that I've personally went through, because I can't even really handle them. I have a hard time dealing with everybody. I have a hard time even trying to date, because I'm like, I know what people do to me, and I cannot deal with this ever again. Like I just can't. So the fact that that happened to them and they were posting about it and everyone was taking it as a fucking joke made me really angry, and it still makes me angry to this day. And I guess the the end point to this part of the video is just like, it disgusts me that so many people saw what was happening and so many people knew about their life or knew about parts of their life and they did nothing. And I tried, and there's still nothing I can do. I could do at the time, and still nothing I can do now for them. And it just makes me sad that they deserved so much better. Like, all the time. Like, everything that was happening to them, all the fucking... Because it was also a constant thing where they'd have, like, a revolving door situation of, like, boyfriends who would treat them like shit. And it's because they had BPD, so they would get really attached to these boys, and these boys would see that and completely take advantage of them in multiple ways. And once again, it filled me with a rage that I don't necessarily know what to do with. Like, it just, I think about it all the time, and it makes me really angry. And I don't know how to deal with these emotions in a lot of ways. Or I do, because I'm dealing with them, but, like, I go to therapists, and therapists are no help at all. I mean, in general. Like, once again, that's a separate video I'm gonna make about, like, therapists just being kind of useless, but whatever. I miss them so much every day. And the funny thing is, part of the reason I stopped posting my art is because I had a character I made up when I was like 13 years old. And that character was my really good friend. That was my only friend, honestly. Like, there were two characters, and both of them I really, really loved and adored. I would make stories about them exclusively all the time. I forgot about them for a while. Or I forgot about her for a while. Not because I was, like, actively trying to forget, but because I started working with other characters, and I was like, oh, that was the thing I did when I was little. But the character came back recently, and I started working with them, and I just, like, that character is one of the most important things I've ever done with my art. I don't know how else to describe it, because I have a lot of feelings about her. Like, she came out as I was coming out. Like, I developed this, person as I was developing, essentially, as a way to, like, have somebody who was, like, a friend who could, like, almost help me through these things and, like, kind of mentally cope with all these things. And I love her so much. She's my favorite person in the whole world. Like, she's a great character. I work with her all the time. I still draw her all the time, and it's great. But somewhere along the way, once again, this character existed when I was younger and, like, existed before Darby, but for some reason this character and Darby have, like, fused in my mind. And now, I won't really post her anywhere because I feel like I need to protect this character with my life. Like, that's crazy sounding, but I'm like, dude, like, this person is so important to me, and, like, I couldn't protect Darby from anything. Nothing. Not only would they not let me because they were like, it's fine, like, we're both going through a lot, like, I can handle myself, and I was like, okay, if you say so, and then they couldn't. But also, I feel like having my artwork constantly attacked because I draw trans people of color is just, like, a lot for me. And then, like, now that this character has essentially fused with somebody who I would like to protect with my entire fucking life, even if it just comes to their memory, like, I can't have her out in public like that. Like, I do not have a desire to make money off of her. I don't want people looking at her because I don't feel like sitting there and dealing with the fact that, like, oh no, I drew a trans woman, but, like, I didn't draw a trans woman either A, as a really intense caricature of a trans woman, and I also didn't draw her as, like, a hyper feminine, like, woman who is conforming to all these, like, feminine ideals just so that she can be valid as a trans woman. She's like a brown trans woman who's, like, a person of color, and also just, like butch like I am. Like, I just don't feel the need to, have people or, like, ideas or concepts that I care about attacked in such a, vicious way ever again. Because I remember when I used to post, and, like, I was not even, like, popular necessarily, but, like, I was, like, decently well known in, like, the lesbian community, and I would just be getting shit on every single day, and my characters would be getting shit on every single day. And it was just not worth it, honestly. I wish I could say that it was, but I don't think it was. Like, it was too much for me. So, all this to say, I'm sick of trans people constantly dying. It makes me so upset. It breaks my heart. I don't know what to do about it other than try to support people around me who are also trans, and like, I don't know, try to articulate the fact that like it's actually really hard to talk about this, because I know the thing I'm supposed to say is never commit suicide ever. That's horrible, and if you do it, it's going to upset your entire family and all your friends, and you're going to be a piece of shit. Like, I don't feel that way, because the thing is, like, even with Darby, I miss them, I love them, I think about them all the time. I wish they're here to see me go through my life. I wish I was there to see them go through their life and finally settle and feel good and have things be okay. But at the same time, I do not blame them at all. I cannot find it in myself to be angry at them for not wanting to suffer anymore, because they were suffering so intensely during their life. It was very intense and like real, and like I could never be mad at them for like feeling like they can't handle it anymore. So I was going to talk about my mom, because my mom died and I had so many questions about her identity, and she grew up in like the 60s, and you couldn't come out as trans or like gay back then at all, really. And I feel like I'm going to leave that for another video. And once again, I don't even know if I'm going to post this video, because like I feel like when I make videos, I want them to be very like engaging and upbeat and like at least like, you know, whatever else. But like I feel like for this one, even if I re-recorded it, I don't think I could pull it out of myself to be like, yeah, my friend died and it was terrible, but everything's okay. Like, everything is not okay. Okay, that person should not be dead. That person never should have been abused by so many men in their life. Sorry. They should have had a really beautiful life. They should have had exactly the life they wanted, and they could never get it. And it plunges me into a hole every time I think about it. So like, but the thing is, it's not like, oh, I made this video, it really upset me. The thing is, like, these things I'm saying, like, I think about them every day. I think about Sammy all the time. That girl should not have died. She should be out and happy and like living her life now. It's not fair. It really isn't fair. So I think the only thing I have left to do is to plug the Trans Lifeline. I call them all the time, actually. Like, I was thinking of making a comic about this at some point, but like, I call emergency hotlines all the time, constantly. Like the mental health ones and the sexual assault ones specifically, and then also like the Trans Lifeline. Like, I call them 24/7, honestly, when I'm home alone and I just feel like shit, because therapy, once again, does not work for me, and I've been trying for 18 years. Like, let me tell you, like 18 full years of trying to get help, and nothing has worked. So I don't know, like, always, if you're trans and you're like having a crisis, please always feel free to call the Trans Lifeline. It's kind of hard to get them to answer because they're so busy and like swamped right now, and for like bureaucratic reasons they are really short on staff, and it's like a whole thing. But like, call them if you need them, and if they at first they don't pick up, call them again and again and again. They really don't mind, and like, they just want to help you. So like, please get yourself some help if you can. And also, if like you end up feeling like you really can't make it through your life, know that I do not blame you for that. And I like, trust me, I completely understand why you feel that way, and like why you want to, you know, do whatever you feel like you need to do at the time. Not saying do it, once again, like, please do not hurt yourself, but also like, know that don't feel bad if you feel like you can't make it through this life, because this life is like too fucking much. Really, it is. Like, completely. Like, I've tried to commit suicide a bunch of times, which I guess I could talk about, but I don't really want to, because it's really bad. Like, the first time I tried to commit suicide, I was 12 years old. So, like, it's real. Like, it's really a real thing. And then from then onward, I kept doing it, and I just stopped telling people, because I was like, you know what, this is pointless. Like, this does not mean I'm in a crisis right now. Call the fucking sick the dogs on me. Like, trust me, I've had that happen to me before, actually, which is why I never promote the Trevor Project, ever. Because they're active rescue, they will literally send cops after you. I've had them do that to me, and then they forced me to commit myself to a psych ward, literally, even though I've been to the psych ward before and went voluntarily and like turned myself in when I felt like I had to, because I was like, I'm having a really bad time. But yeah, that was like actually a very traumatic experience, and why, if I'm actually having a crisis, I don't tell anybody. But all that to say, don't call Project Trevor. Do not do that. Call the Trans Lifeline, or call literally any other hotline that you can find. Maybe not 888, because I know that I call and sometimes they're really apathetic and they don't really give a fuck. But there's so many other resources out there that like can try to help you. I've even called like different places in New York City that are specifically designed for like gay people in crisis, and like they've been pretty good. So I'm gonna try to link all these things underneath. Hopefully this video made sense. I feel like I just like rambled for an hour about like things that make me so incredibly fucking sad, and that I'm sure it's not the only time that it's happened to people. Like I'm sure I could hear story upon story upon story about like trans death and suicide, because it's just so hard to live as a trans person, especially in America. Obviously around the world too, but like in America, like we are not supported and they're actively making laws against us. It's really horrible. So God, all this stuff just makes me so sad. I was gonna mention other people in this video and like more statistics and whatever else about like trans death, but at this point I feel like, you know, like I don't know if that would be particularly helpful. I don't know. I guess that's it. I will talk to you later. Bye.